Hi, welcome back. I'm Matt Pike, a sound designer and composer. In this episode of the PolyBrute tutorial series, we are going to explore the modulation matrix, a huge wireless patch bay that can help you shape, twist, and tame all the power of PolyBrute synth voice that we covered in the last episode, and take your sound design to new heights. PolyBrute's modulation matrix aims to offer almost complete creative freedom in modulating your synth patches, while remaining intuitive and lightning fast. Thanks to its LED button grid and crisp OLED screen, it offers very quick visual feedback of even the most complicated patches. To view the modulation matrix, we press the Mods button next to the matrix. The matrix has 12 predefined modulation sources in rows A to L. We have the VCF envelope and the mod envelope that we chatted about in the synth voice video. And then we have voices. Now, voices is very unique to the PolyBrute. This parameter sets a variable offset for each of the PolyBrute's 6 voices. The classic use of this would be to set ourselves into unison mode and to assign it to pitch and create unison detune, which is what we've got going on in this batch here. Next we have LFO 1, 2, and 3, and then the modulation sources relating to the keyboard. We have key seek, which can be used to make any modulation destination track the note information being played, not just the filters. There are lots of examples of how we can use this. For instance, here we're using FM and metalizer only on the low notes of a patch to get more grit on the bass notes. Next, we have velocity and aftertouch, which we can use to add dynamics and expression to a patch. Finally, we have our expression controllers. These are the mod wheel, ribbon, and expression pedal 2. However, if the Morphing mode is set to matrix, the assignments made here will also apply to its X, Y, and Z axis. We also have a mode switch for the mod wheel, which allows it to ignore the matrix routing and control either master cutoff, vibrato depth, or LFO1 amplitude. This is a good time to note that the PolyBrute actually has a hidden 4th simplified LFO dedicated to vibrato, which is what we're using when the mod wheel is in vibrato mode. You can quickly access the settings for this LFO by pressing and holding the settings button and then pressing the wheel mode button. This LFO frees up the main LFOs for other jobs. For instance, in this sound, they're combining to make lots of subtle movements, but by using the mod wheel in vibrato mode, we still get a bit of musical vibrato. All the mod destinations in the PolyBrute are freely assignable. We can choose our mod destinations by holding one of these 8 numbered buttons at the top of the matrix, and then turning a panel control. We actually have 4 pages of these as well, which we can cycle through by just pressing 1, 2, 3, or 4. So that's 32 destinations overall, and you can make 64 connections in total. I can honestly say, after having spent a year designing sounds on the PolyBrute, I've never hit that limit in practical use, and that's not for lack of trying. Let's walk through creating a basic modulation. First, press the Mods button to open the Mods matrix. You'll see that we're given a few destinations that don't relate to panel controls by default. I'll come back to those later. In column 1, we're going to pick a parameter. Let's go for master cutoff. Don't worry, any movements you make on the control while you're assigning it, they're muted, they won't affect your sound. Then let's choose a modulation source. We're going to go for LFO3, so that's row F. So we're going to press the button in column 1 for LFO3. And we have our connection. Now all we need to do is dial in an amount and we're good to go. The amount knob is bipolar, so we can add positive or negative values. We get a mini display pop up on the screen that helps us know what we're setting. Being a matrix, we can also assign a number of sources to the one destination and vice versa. Let's add a little ramp modulation to that filter with LFO1. As we can assign almost any panel parameter as a modulation destination, we could also modulate our LFOs and our envelopes. In this case, we're going to modulate the rate of LFO3, and I'm going to go for key. The LFO is set to sync, so this should stay fairly musical. We can take our modulation a step further in the matrix by choosing a matrix connection as a modulation destination. The best way to explain this would be to demonstrate it. So let's say we want to control the amount LFO3 is affecting the master cutoff with another modulation source. We can do this by holding a number at the top of the modulation matrix, and instead of wiggling a panel control, we're just going to press the button for the connection of LFO3 to master cutoff. We now have amount 1 F1, which relates to the first column and row F. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to turn down the amount of modulation we had originally, and I'm going to bring it up instead on mod envelope to that third column. So what this is going to let us do is, if I stick sustain up on the mod envelope and add a bit of attack, we'll find that that LFO won't kick in straight away. One of my favourite tricks using this technique is actually to use the mod envelope to turn off the LFO while we're playing a note and then turn it on when we let go. So if I turn the amount back up of the LFO to the filter to 30% and then set the mod envelope to that destination to minus 30%, what we'll get is, because the sustain is high, no LFO3 until I release. Which is pretty nice. There are 10 hidden modulation destinations available in the matrix which do not correlate with a front panel control. In order to assign these, press the slot you'd like to add the destination to, and then turn the amount knob to scroll through the additional destinations. The first is VCA, LFO 1, 2, and 3 amplitudes, pitch global, which affects both VCO1 and VCO2 in the exact same way, and it's a really good way of quickly adding vibrato or unison detune. It's also worth noting, if we're actually editing any pitch amounts in the matrix, it's helpfully scaled to semitones when we're doing more than an octave, and a fine-tune control when we do less. The last destinations we have in the hidden destinations list are the pan ones, Steiner, ladder, and voice pan, and the final ones relate to the vibrato LFO, vibrato depth, and vibrato speed. This is really nice because it means we could actually add vibrato with aftertouch or the Morphy rather than using the mod wheel if we want to. If you'd like to remove an assignment, simply select it and then press it again. The amount will be remembered, which is great because it means if we turn it back on, we can kind of use this as a performance control, playing it in time. If we want to get rid of all of our modulations, we press and hold left and hit the mods key. Alright, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you can see how this matrix is pretty much any sound designer's dream. Next, we'll move on to the defining feature of the PolyBrute: morphing and the expression controls. Thanks for watching, and check out the links down below for more info.